Australia.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and welcome to episode 77 of Lifestyle Pirates with me, Big J, and him, Adriano.
Buongiorno.
That's smooth, nice. On this episode, we are joined by Cam Price, who is the co-founder of a business called LeadStory. Cam, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
How are we doing?
I'm all right. Yeah, you offered me a beer and I very nearly took one.
You should have taken one because we're going to give you a grilling. We're going to give you an absolute grilling.
Grilling in a
I might
beer.
need something stronger.
Yeah, you're all good, mate. You're all good. Well, look, thank you for coming on the show. To give our viewers, our listeners, a bit of context in terms of who you are, how we're here, tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am by trade a reporter, a TV journalist. I spent, a decade and a half in some of the country's biggest newsrooms. I loved it. It was a great job. I got to go and cover some really cool things, go and do some great stories and meet some pretty remarkable people. And I got into it because I was a news obsessive. I just loved to watch. I remember as a kid, I'd get home, we'd watch Channel 9 News up in Brizzy. We'd record ABC, I'd watch that. I'd watch 7:30 and I'd just watch. And
Is that because there was nothing else to do in Brisbane?
Come on, mate.
it's God's country, Brizzy. Don't be.
I've got a lot of friends up in Brisbane. It's a good place.
There's not a lot to do. No. And you know, I originally wanted to get into sports journalism. I went and did an internship at Courier Mail up in Brisbane, which was brilliant in the sports department. And I just basically went and put bets on for the reporters in the sports department and didn't really leave the office. We just went and, made a few phone calls and that was kind of that. And I thought maybe print journalism isn't my thing. And then I went and did a week at Channel 9 up in Brisbane as a 19-year-old second year uni student and said, this is it. This is what I want to do.
And what was it? What was your obsession, to use your word, with the news? What kind of turned you on about it?
There's probably two main parts. The first is it's the thrill of the chase. It's an adrenaline rush when you're going out to cover big stories like, a bushfire or a plane crash. You're there. You're filming it, so you're in the thick of it. And then the second element is it's a craft. It's a creative process where you put pictures and words together and try and turn it into a compelling 90-second piece of television. And there's some real satisfaction in that. It takes a while. I remember my first week I got a job out of uni through that internship at Channel 9. They made a recommendation for me and I went and worked at Win Toowoomba. And I was a week into the job and my EP at the time said, have you ever been on camera before? And I said, no, I studied print journalism. She was like, bless you. She said, you're not cut out for it. Your voice is awful. You are nowhere near.
What a rip.
It was pretty savage.
I think that's why we get more listeners on this show than views on YouTube because we've both got nice voices.
The dulcet tones.
Not good for YouTube.
I mean, we can make that. We'll just put you up on the channel. And so to learn a bit about me, I've got a weird thing where I love it when people tell me no. It motivates the heck out of me. And so I recorded a guy called Bruce Page, who was the newsreader for Channel 9. I recorded him every night for 6 months and I copied his voice and just basically became Bruce Page, 40 years younger, much lower salary and picked it up and became the youngest ever reporter hired by Channel 9 Brisbane. Spent a brilliant 5 years there, got to cover incredible stories. I went to London for 12 months.
That was under Sky, wasn't it?
No, London. I did some time with B Sky B with Sky. In London, B Sky B. It was when I was over in London, I did a bit of time with both 9 and B Sky B because there wasn't stories all the time. Did Cyclone Yazi, a Category 5 cyclone going overhead. going out the next day and homes scattered across the street, and it's a big Queensland story. I'm not sure if it really spread beyond there, but there was the Grantham disaster, that wall of water which wiped away an entire town in the Lockyer Valley, 12 people dead. That was a incredibly sad but incredibly significant story, and for us, it kind of really put my name on the map in terms of young up-and-coming reporters, because we got into that town before anyone did, and we stayed there for 3 days, and it was the biggest story in the country at the time, and we really got some good coverage out of that. And then after that, I got an offer to come down to Sydney with Channel 9 Sydney. My time at 9 ended a little unceremoniously, and then I took up a role at Sky News in Sydney after that.
Yeah. So how does it? How do you sort of disconnect yourself when you got to talk about some of those really difficult conversations or difficult stories? A wall of water coming through and wiping out a whole town is pretty catastrophic and emotional to sort of deal with. So, you're talking to people on the ground and you're trying to get their story across. How do you sort of split yourself in two? And is it easy, or how do you prepare yourself to, you're talking to some family that's, been ripped apart, and then you've got to go turn around and look at a lens and, and tell a story?
I was never good at it.
Yeah.
You're right. It doesn't get easier. I think some people can process it a little better, but I was always, it always affected me. That's probably the easiest way to say it. There was that story, the Grantham story. We were introduced to a gentleman whose, and it's awful, but whose wife and 3 out of his 4 kids perished. And I interviewed him 3 days after it happened. And, it was a horrifically sad story and an incredibly difficult interview. But I think I always just said to myself, we need to give this community and these people relevance, and in order to get them the help that they need. And 18 months later, the entire town of Grantham was moved onto a hill with the help of government funding. And so, yes, they did get the recognition that they deserve, but that period and that moment when you're, across from someone who is going through the worst possible thing that you could ever possibly imagine, it doesn't get easy. There are, though, parts of the job where I always tried to avoid putting people in that situation if they didn't have to be in it. So there's a part of being a reporter, which I think is the worst part, is doing what's called a death knock. And so there'd be a situation where a family's been involved in a house fire, a car crash, or whatever it might be, and the following day you find out who they are, and you have to go and try and get them to give you an interview. And often you'd get sent out, and I was an early starter, so you'd get sent out to go to an address and knock on the door of the family. And I would always try and find a way not to do that. Even when we got to the house, you would just kind of park up the street and then catch the other crews from the other networks as they came down the street and said, we've already knocked, they don't want to talk. It's not an easy part of the job.
Yeah, that sounds like an absolute horrible job to do the knock on the door in the morning after something, tragic like that. Far out. Yeah, that doesn't seem good.
No. Well, I was curious because when you mentioned things about your love, you mentioned the kind of thrill of the chase, which, having worked in sales for the majority of my career, I get that. I think, how do you? What's the? Is there ever like an ethical dilemma? Because the thrill of a chase, to be first to get the story, do you ever go, actually, I don't want to be the first to report about a bushfire, or I don't want to be the first to report about a massive pile up on the, Bruce Highway or whatever it was. Did you ever catch yourself there? I mean, I can understand I want to be the first to report with the Socceroos, and I think you did the FIFA World Cup in Brazil as well, which we'll cover. You can understand there's things there that you want to be. When did you kind of go, actually, I might go a little sneaky second place there?
Yeah, I think early I realised that crime was something that I really wanted to avoid trying to report on. And it's a what's called the chase round. It is called the chase. It's the reporter that starts at 4:05 a.m. There's something that's happened overnight. They get sent out to the location, and you chase the story through the morning for the more senior reporter to go and cover of an evening. It's a super common role in a newsroom. I tried to not do crime as much as I could because, yes, those are the types of stories that they're really common, but it's not an interesting script to write. It's not the pictures are often not that great. The round which I really enjoyed, and it sounds weird when you think about it, but I love disaster. I loved going to cover a bushfire or a cyclone or a flood for a few reasons, because it was the biggest story, not just in the country. Sometimes it was the biggest story on the planet. It really required a certain type of connection with people, because the best stories are about people. And even in a disaster, the stories that you want to tell are, the story about the old couple that were rescued by firefighters who saw them, through the window, and they pulled them out as the flames went over the hill. It's the people story, and you see people in, really difficult times, but also that makes the best stories, especially when people in those sort of scenarios do fantastic and really respectable things.
So you also mentioned, you mentioned the World Cup, so I want to jump on that. Are we talking football?
Yes, we're talking football.
Round one, yeah?
FIFA.
All right, sweet.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, man. That sounds amazing.
It was
so
fun.
you're a big sport guy as well. We were talking about F1 before, and you were quite educated on it, unlike John. But
and I was going to say, he's never had an in-depth conversation.
Yeah, okay. I was talking about it. I was like, oh, yeah, F1. And then you actually know your shit. And then John was there like, oh, yeah, I know stuff too. So, yeah, tell us about the football experience, World Cup. Are you a big sport nut? What's your football team? Tell, mate. So much more I want to cover here.
Let's dive in.
Yeah, let's dive into it.
How long do we have?
Football team. Who's your football team?
I support Wolverhampton Wanderers.
That's respectful. Yeah.
Very random.
You didn't see that coming.
No, I didn't. I was hoping he was going to say Man U or something like that. No. All right, yeah, that's very respectful, actually.
Strangely enough, because of Kevin Muscat.
Yeah.
In school, we all picked the player, and everyone picked Liverpool because Harry Kewell was playing for Liverpool, or Manchester United because Bosnich was playing for Manchester United. I went a bit rogue and went Kevin Muscat, the leg breaker. Playing at
I like that, man.
Wolverhampton Wanderers.
I'm assuming Kevin Muscat is an Aussie, yeah? Cool. All right, yep. Just checking in.
So, World Cup.
Yeah. So
how did it come about? When you got asked, were you like, fucking yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny because I never covered much sport. But when I went to Sky, it was a very different role to Nine. So at Nine, you have a camera operator who comes out with you on the road, you go and film, and you have a link operator who sets up the satellite truck. And there's a big team that is used to get that piece of content to air. There were some economic considerations at Sky, and so we did everything ourselves. The whole lot was done by one person. So I was what you call a video journalist. I would have my own camera, my own tripod, and we would travel around with a little backpack which has half a dozen mobile phone SIM cards in, and you'd stream it out. And so a lot of my work at Sky was a bit of both. You get sent to places to film and report. And so when the boss came to me and said, look, we're thinking about sending you to Brazil for a month to cover the World Cup, I said, phenomenal. That sounds like the best thing ever. And I said, who are you sending with me? He said, oh, we're going to send just you. And so it was so the Socceroos were I can't remember the name of the town. It will come to me. They were training out of a beautiful seaside beach location, and where the preparation camp was, and we were staying in the hotel next to the Socceroos. And I got there a couple of days early. I'd spent a couple of weeks trekking around mountains in Peru before I got there. And
sweet.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was a brilliant trip. And when I got there, they had given me a room which was facing another hotel next door. So my balcony looked out onto a concrete wall. And
pretty.
Yeah, great backdrop. And I knew I was probably going to be sat on that balcony for a month. And so I went down to reception and said, is there any rooms that you have available that have a backdrop out onto the beach? And they said, oh, there is one room, but it's held by, let me see, Network 7. I said, oh, we work with them. They'd be absolutely happy for me to swap rooms with them. And so Ryan Phelan kind of from 7, their reporter, gets in the next day, and we're down at the cafe underneath the hotel, and he's complaining. He's saying, I've got this terrible room. We were going to do all our live crosses from the hotel balcony. Now we've got to go down the beach at 4 a.m. in the morning. And here I am set up on the balcony with this perfect backdrop. So that was my month.
You didn't tell him?
No, never. No, absolutely never.
He might find out now, though.
Yeah. Send it to him.
He's a big fan of the show. But you know what? It sounds more glamorous than it was because we didn't actually go to any games, but we went to training and I got to meet Ange and had a a bit of time with the players and loved it. It's just,
You're in the thick of it as well, like atmosphere's going crazy.
And it was that World Cup where Timmy Cahill scored that absolute belter from kickoff, and there was lots of good colour there. But probably even better for me was the fact that work had expected for some reason Australia to make the quarterfinals, so they booked me flights out 2 weeks after the group stage. And so when we went out in the group stage, I kind of had 2 weeks where there was nothing to report on. So.
Because they weren't interested in anything else that wasn't.
We did a little bit, but that was.
Have you ever watched the Commonwealth Games or Olympic Games on TV? Like, unless it's swimming, there's nothing else on.
Yeah,
Aussies do not report on anything apart from the stuff that you guys do.
Yeah, that's fair. F1 don't care when Ricciardo's or Piastri.
As soon as they would have been knocked out. Yeah. All right, cool. The tournament's finished,
mate. I'd have been like, all right, what parties are on? What are we doing?
It's a good party town.
Yeah, I bet.
and it was, it was fun, but also the whole nation got behind that team because we didn't win many games, but it was the top of the news because there was lots and lots of highlights and they were super open to the media and all the players were doing interviews every second day. So yeah, it was a great trip, great story. My now wife flew out from the UK to visit me there for a week after I had nothing to do, which was brilliant. And we tripped around a bit. So, yeah, it's a good month of reporting.
Actually, on that, you got a question to ask about reporting, don't you?
I do, yeah. It's actually one from our studio audience before they left to go for dinner. And it was around, there's been a decline in reporters but an increase in journalists.
Okay.
And it was really just a kind of more of a comment on that, maybe an observation where people just do the news now. They're not really reporting and giving their commentary, their sentiment, that kind of stuff. So I was curious to get your thoughts, considering you were in it for over a decade.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there definitely is. There's huge change amongst the whole news industry, and when you break it right down, the idea of news is about satisfying people's urge for curiosity. And when we were kids, and I think we all grew up around the same time, your parents would read the newspaper in the morning and you'd watch the 6 p.m. news at night, and that was how you found out what was happening around the world. That was your window into events that were important. And with the rise of social media, it's now instant. So before the news goes to air that there's been a stabbing at Bondi Junction. You've seen Chris Rock getting slapped by Will Smith hours before it's in the paper or hours before it's on the news. And so this totally changing dynamic of how people satisfy that urge for curiosity, their desire for information is fundamentally transformed the way that people consume news. And so the business models underneath the media, the news business, yes, they've shifted because people they're not going to the newspaper, they're going to TikTok. They're not going to the 6 p.m. news, they're going to YouTube. Or they're avoiding news entirely because it makes them feel depressed because there's nothing in the news but awfulness. And so, yes, I think you're right. I think if I were a university student studying journalism right now, I would probably be thinking, what on earth am I going to do in a decade? This industry in the past decade has been so heavily disrupted that what does it look like in a decade from now? It's not great.
And you used a term at the start, you used the term craft, which I love. And so what I've picked up there is that there's no craft in it anymore because it's all instant. There's a demand to be the first. There's a demand to, I guess, write the most provocative headline that gets the most clicks that then pays for the advert. So it's no longer a craft. It's about being there first.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, and
Having never worked in journalism, but I'm just picking up from what you put down.
It's the same as the headline for the podcast. I mean, that's the idea.
Yeah.
More clicks, more views. No, it is. And I still think there's a craft. I think when you watch a really interesting news piece, or, you know, if you see a great TikTok, there is craft behind that. People have put it together in a thoughtful and creative way. And the thing I always like to do is to have people come to you and say, oh, that story that you did about that flood victim in this place, and it ran 6 months ago, and they said, oh, that story just really stuck with me. And that always, to me, was like, okay, well, that was 90 seconds of their life, sat on their couch 6 months ago, and it's still taking up real estate in their head. That, for me, was always validation that it left an impact. And that was what I always tried to do with my stories. Every story, as you know, some less significant than others, chasing some poor sod down outside court after he'd done something. And
so one of the things that I picked up from the studio audience before, it was very different to what you picked up from what she said as well. For me, it was more like reporting versus journalism. Before, it was more sort of black and white. It wasn't any sort of bias in it. Whereas when it comes into like journalism now, it's crafted in a way where it has biases, and, you know, depending on who's reporting it, Sky News, Nine News, like depending on who, I don't know who the bias is for each news, but you know, it happens to be very biased now. And it would have been back then as well, when it was more reporters in comparison to journalists. So I'm struggling to see what the difference is between a reporter and a journalist. A reporter is someone that does something more verbatim, and a journalist is someone that does something more emotionally driven or something like that.
I think it's a bit of both. I think you can be a reporter that takes a side, and I think you can be a journalist who takes a side. I think the difference now is that, as you mentioned, John, there is a desire for clicks and views, and, you know, you are judged on how viral a story goes or doesn't go. And so often it's going to get more clicks or views if you do say something which is on one side, one side of the political spectrum to the other. If you do say something that's inflammatory, that's often a good way to get more clicks and views. But what happens underneath it all is, through this realm of sensationalism, is you turn people off. You see more and more people who just say, you know what, I don't want to engage with that. I don't want to watch the news anymore. There's nothing in the news but, you know, carjackings and crime, or, you know, there's too much fake news, which I constantly hear, and too much disinformation. And I think
Trump. Fake news.
And that's part and parcel of an industry in serious change, which is, you know, the information industry is going through rapid and deep transformation.
I must admit, sometimes the bias that you hear on news is exhausting sometimes, you know, because you know that there's an agenda being pushed. You know that they're trying to bring out something, legislate something, do something. So it's just like, you listen to it and you're like, all right, that's going to be about this, this and that. They're going to say this, this and that. And it's like bang, verbatim, next, you know. How do you sort of tell a story without having any bias if you're, say, under a contract or something for a particular newsroom that has a certain bias?
So I'm probably a pretty good example, because I worked at Sky News, and it is clearly right-wing, and that was, you know, they wear it on their sleeve. They're not ashamed to say it. I'm a centrist. I always have been. I'm your prototypical swing voter. Mum and dad were working class, left wing, and so going into that newsroom and doing quite a lot of politics, because I did quite a few election campaigns, I would often get some feedback on my work that, well, why did you not give one side more time than the other? And that, you know, that was always my MO, that I wanted to kind of tell both sides of the story. I didn't want to take a side, but often you'd get a script sub-edited to have a few more glowing things said about one side and a few less glowing things said about another side. And that's just, you know, I was aware of that. That was I knew going into that job that's what it would be like. I'm also well aware of the fact that I think the audience knows it as well. If you're watching the ABC,
you're watching Sky or something like that,
you're watching Sky, you're watching Fox News. That's what you want to watch. You're not watching it unless you're on the other side. So it is a bit of speaking to your audience, but I'm with you. I think agendas are damaging, and I think, you know, this idea that media companies have to align with one side of politics it's not good.
On the balance side of things, because you actually covered the Sydney Lindt Cafe.
Wow.
Which was that 2014 as well?
Yeah.
Was that long
I mean,
ago?
how did you stay balanced and emotional? Because one of my observations with news reporters is they have a very monotone voice, and I used to be like, why the hell are you speaking like that? But I think as I've got over, I've probably appreciated that they're trying to remain level, because they don't want to show too much emotion. But in that, because I remember us talking before when we first connected, you kind of got rushed to that from an airport. So like you must have been in quite a state of flux, and then for something of that magnitude to happen here in Australia is very, very rare. How did you be present, be balanced? And I guess that kind of giving away your bias and all that kind of stuff. Just how did you switch on to cam? Yeah,
that was a very unusual day. That is probably in the in the top 2 or 3 strangest days in the job. But yes, I just hopped off a plane. I'd been on assignment and I was heading home. And the boss said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm not far from home in Pyrmont at the time." And he said, "I need you to head into the city. There's a report of a siege situation in Martin Place." And I think at the start, there was something on Twitter that it was maybe in a bank. And I know that the Lindt Cafe is in what used to be a bank, so that might have been where the report came from. But initially I thought I was heading to a bank robbery gone wrong. And so we set up at the top of Martin Place up near the Parliament House. There's the Big Boar statue, which is just across the street from the Lindt Cafe. I set up and I could see the people in the windows, and I could see the flag with the Islamic writing on it from where I was. And I said straight away to work, I said, this is terror related. I think this is significant. And I was there until 4 a.m. the following morning after the siege ended. That was, I think the first call came just before 9 o'clock, and we did more than 350 live crosses that day, between myself and the team. And it was a huge news event. It was leading news on CNN. It was, top of the hour at BBC. And there was not a lot of information. One of the things that you get trained as a journalist is when you're on a really big police operation, you have to listen to the police's rules. And often they're things like don't name suspects, don't talk about operational police matters. So one of the things that we weren't allowed to say was that police are approaching the building, because if for whatever reason Man Monis was inside listening to his mobile phone and he could see that police were approaching the building. So there's a lot of things that we were seeing but we couldn't say. And that's a tricky situation, but certainly one thing which really stuck with me is in the early hours of the morning as the siege was about to come to an end, I saw the police preparing. I saw their lights turned on, and I was talking and trying not to talk about what was happening. But certainly as the siege ended and the police went in, we just stopped talking and the cameraman zoomed in. And the sound of that, that'll stay with me as long as I live. The automatic gunfire, and you could pick the shotgun sound of him firing back because he fired back at police as they entered. That was a pretty intense day in the job.
Crazy. So was your face blasted out around the world?
Yeah, so I was on CNN that day. B-Sky being in the UK. Yeah, we were busy.
So what happens there? Is there affiliation with other news networks all around the world, right? There's only a couple of news networks that are, sorry, my ignorance. But so say your network here then sells it to them? Is that what happens?
There's affiliate agreements where if CNN wants some coverage from Australia, they've got an agreement with CNN and with Sky News. And so there's interchangeable. So we would often get CNN reporters doing crosses for us from the ground in wherever it might be in the US, and we would do crosses for them, and that was the same with Sky.
Okay, I always wanted to know how that worked.
I didn't get paid for it.
Oh, so you don't clip the ticket.
Nothing.
Don't get royalties
the
like
more
you do on
views
your
it-
music, mate.
Yeah.
Couple of cents here and
Spotify, yeah, mate. Yeah, aren't you?
Couple of cents.
Yeah. Very generous people, the people at Spotify.
Did you ever get into the world of politics?
As in running for politics or reporting politics?
Oh, mate, if you ran, then fair enough, we can talk about it, but I guess reporting.
Yeah, did quite a bit with Sky. Did the Rudd election campaign. I did 2 election campaigns, and then when I was at 7, I did an election campaign as well, federal.
Yeah.
Look, I never minded politics. I never minded reporting on it. It was, it's a contacts game, so it's who you know and who can feed you some information, which, again, is a part of the job that I always enjoyed, having contacts and having people that I could call on to say, what is the context here? What do I need to know?
That was going to be a question, like sources of information. I mean, so like, again, mate, I've only ever done sales, right? So obviously you have your black book of networks, you got your all of that kind of things that people think of you. Is it the same in your world where you've got these these lead sources of information, trusted sources? How do you find them? How do you nurture them? How do you keep in contact? How do you reward them? Do you reward them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sources are a huge part of the game. So yes, I had quite a few sources in Canberra who I nurtured through my early Sky days and through the contacts that I made there, and then I kept them through Channel 7. Thank you. And I think what you bring to them is confidence. So you keep them. You make sure that they trust that you won't reveal who they are, and that they can when they need, and sometimes it suits them. They can feed you information that they know will go to air, and the majority of the time, it's things that will help your story. Sometimes, though, it wasn't. It was agendas that they wanted to set and leaks that they wanted to get out there, and you're a vehicle for that. So you've got to be able to judge when you should go to air with something. I would always try to verify. I'd always try and speak to someone else about, hey, I got a call about this. Is this something that you're hearing as well? But there were a couple of times I went to air with things that turned out to be not true, and that's because sources placed it to try and get a story out.
Yeah, that's a lot of responsibility and power. Someone could be, as you mentioned, just feeding you bullshit just to set an agenda. So you got to sort of filter through that stuff because it's very responsible for, the stuff you put out there. You're putting it out there for forever.
There's a relationship with politicians and the media, which is a very close one. It just is. A lot of the people in the Prime Minister's office are ex-journalists, or in politicians' offices, chief of staffs, handlers are very interconnected with the media, and that's a big part of their world. And so, yes, it is a responsibility, but it's a bit of theatre too. I mean, sometimes a good leak and a good political story is all about the, sources tell me that.
Yeah.
I love it a bit spicy. It's good.
All in the sizzle. And so how do you, I've got to be careful I do this, how do you dumb down the complicated stuff? So if I go to politics, so when I first moved here, and I'm not massive into politics in the UK, let alone in Australia, right? So how do you, for someone like me that doesn't know left, right, what the governments are, all that kind of stuff, how do you dumb that down for the layman? Because I guess if I reflect on, and if we go back to the UK with Brexit, I don't think there's a lot of people that I've spoken to, like my friends and family, that didn't really know what they were voting for. It was all a few taglines, right? Maybe they had an agenda. So with stuff that's complicated, how do you dumb it down?
Yeah, so the best stories are always about people. So with complex things, you always try and get, if you can, a case study. So if it's about Brexit, you find the business owner that is going to benefit or not benefit from it, and you speak about their story in relation to the broader policy. And that's I think that's good journalism. You want people to be able to relate to what they're watching, especially if it's a complex matter, and you try and let experts in the room give their views on it. And that's, it's not me telling you, it's somebody else who knows far more than me. And, one of the great sayings that a former boss said to me, he goes, The thing about journalists is you know a little bit about everything and not a lot about anything. And you can use those little bits of pockets of knowledge to kind of educate the audience with the help of experts that you bring in, talent.
And it's a bit like Seth Godin says, people buy relationships and stories, right?
And the best stories are people stories. Doesn't matter what they are, from you know, interest rate rise to Brexit, is always including people.
Yeah.
So with the program, this might be the wrong question to ask, but it always seems like the news is sort of crafted in a way. It's almost like a feedback sandwich, you know, where you give, you know, good news, bad news, good news, so it's more palatable. Is the news sort of program like that as well? Because you do hear like you know, they're talking about death and this and that, and then this squirrel is driving a boat, you know, like whatever.
That was from Anchorman.
Yeah,
buddy.
Anchorman. I know. But that was the first thing that I could come. I needed something that was extremely contrast.
It's panda giving birth.
Man, you're ruining my sauces, bro. They were supposed to be tight.
Is that the last time you watched the news?
Yeah.
Anchorman.
Yeah, pretty much.
It probably was.
No,
They had a sequel. He's watched that too.
to be honest, I'm actually massively into politics and watch the news all the time, mainly US. I'm fascinated by that country. Never been. Just seems like a fucking shambles. But it's really, you know, the sun, it's bad for you, but you just can't help looking every now and then. Just like a car crash, I guess. So yeah, what was my point? What was my question?
You're talking about the kind of the sandwich that is the news.
Yeah. Is a program like that intentionally? Like, because it does seem a little bit fabricated.
I think, you know, traditionally the story after the weather is the good news story to try and leave you feeling happy after watching the news, but there's not a lot of that anymore. And you know, there's this huge school of thought around how many people are actively avoiding the news now because it makes them depressed. It you know, there's so many things that they are seeing in that hour or half an hour that they watch that you probably need a squirrel driving a boat at the end. But
It was a good story.
And look, don't get me wrong, a bit of good news is always good in our lives, but I think there's the problem that we face is if we keep expecting that people will continue to watch the news, and it's a hugely important part of our fabric, and you know, helps in a whole range of ways, educating people about things like politics and things what's going on in the US. We can't expect that we can keep viewers by giving them a feel good story at the end of the news bulletin. I think that the studies show that more and more people are switching off entirely. 69% of Americans say they actively avoid the news because of one topic, might be politics. It was really relevant during COVID. I had that. I was the news obsessive that stopped watching the news because all I was ever reporting on and all I was ever watching was case numbers and how you know, you walked away from scrolling through Twitter or reading the SMH or watching the news feeling depressed. You felt low, and that's a problem because if people switch off entirely, they're missing huge parts of what you need people to know. The results in the Formula One, what's happening in politics, you know, issues down in Bondi Junction, and significant things that we need to tell people about, but they're not consuming it because it doesn't make them feel good. And so I think this issue of news avoidance is a significant one.
Sometimes the bad news is interesting to listen to as well. So one thing I want to know is, how is news consumed in Australia now? Because if you look at overseas, yes, they've got CNN. I'm going to use the US. So obviously they've got their box basic CNNs and all that stuff. But a lot of the news now is like Daily Wire, right? Stephen Crowder, the Young Turks, and it's all YouTube based, right? There's not really, that I know of, big news reporters or big news teams like the Daily Wire. Like Daily Wire is massive. Candace Owen before she left, and anyways, Matt Walsh. There's a massive amount of people on that sort of news anchor. I don't know, news team. All right. There's nothing like that in Australia. Are we going to see a transition where there will be more of those things? Is that already happening? Is it already here? Like, I just don't know about it, because it's the news, the way we sort of consume it seems to be changing massively. You know, you mentioned before the next 10 years doesn't look very good. And if you pivot, it kind of does. You know, like you look at the numbers that Daily Wire, Young Turks, all of those people are making. Massive money, humongous money, you know. So is the traditional sort of CNN and all that fading away, and we're getting this new YouTube sort of revolt coming through, you know, and who's doing it here? You on the front line?
I think so. I think one of the main reasons for that is that people have become conditioned in a content space to get two very simple things. In the last decade, there's been a total transformation of how you consume content by letting people watch what they want to watch when they want to watch it. Like you flick on TikTok, the first story is something you care about. You load up YouTube, the first row of stories is, you know, the things that you traditionally watch. And even in a content space, Netflix, the series that it's recommending to you, it knows what you watch, it knows what you like, and you can turn it on whenever you want. The CNNs and the network newses here of the world, they still expect that you to be sat on your couch at the top of the hour to watch the things that we think you should know. And I think the audience has moved on from that. They've evolved.
Absolutely.
And this whole idea that, well, news is news and people should watch because we're important, that's done. The Young Turks are showing that they can generate an audience, and you watch the audiences of news networks here and overseas, they're in free fall. 4 years ago, 32% of Americans said they preferred to get their news from TV. That's now 24%. It's off cliff.
Yeah, wow.
And so, yes, I think this idea that we keep doing things the same and the audiences will come back, it doesn't happen. And you saw in New Zealand, they only had two broadcast newsrooms. One of them has just shut down. That's coming to us here. There is no question about that. And so the thing that the contention that I have is that Young Turks and The Wire and all these guys do a really good function. They provide commentary on what's happened. But who goes and films what happens at Bondi Junction? Who goes and films the World Cup in Brazil?
Fair.
It's newsrooms. It's news networks. And so who asks politicians and holds them to account? That's newsrooms. That's journalists. That's reporters that go out on the road that are supported by cameramen and editors and link operators and all the functions of a newsroom. And if that dies, or if it heads towards the cliff like I think it is, and the studies and the ratings show that it is, I think that's bad for us as a society. I think it harms us more than it helps us.
Yeah, it's actually, I just thought about that then. Like Young Turks, The Wire and all that stuff, they are more commentary, right? So the content is actually provided by networks. So when that goes, does their content go? You know, like who goes first? It's a bit of I just thought about it then when you mentioned it, obviously. So yeah, if the network does die out, what happens to the next sort of level down?
I'd like to think the network doesn't die out. That's the idea that you can.
You mentioned New Zealand just lost 50% of their whole network, so their network news. So
yeah.
That's a significant loss.
Yeah, it's not good. There's a huge appetite for commentary and people to understand what's happening, and I think that's legitimate. But it's like saying TV would have died out if it wasn't for Netflix. People wouldn't have watched series. You wouldn't have watched, whatever series you're watching, Stranger Things, if it existed on TV. I disagree. I think that this whole transformation to letting people watch in a personalized on-demand way, the news industry needs to lean into that. We need to grab that with both hands, because we know that when that happens in different verticals, when it happens in short-form vertical, TikTok, it explodes. When it happens in Netflix, it explodes. When it happens with KO, when the first sport that's on your screen, when you load it up and you want to watch the Formula One race that happened at 2 a.m. and it's 6 p.m. the following day and you want to sit and watch it, you can. I think news as an industry needs to look at those other examples and say that we have to do that. There's no other option. We have to lean into a personalized on-demand news experience that, more importantly than anything, I think, you talk about any app that asks you the things that you like and the things you're interested in. I think the first question for a personalized news experience is, what don't you want to see? What are the things that have caused you to turn off news? Is that politics? Is that sport? Is it fashion? Is it COVID? And you know what? We won't show you those things. If it's a hugely significant story, okay, it'll appear on your feed.
Yeah.
But you can skip it if you really don't want to watch it. That's, I think, from a personal standpoint, I think that if we could do that, then we have a chance.
So I do love listening to news, but not traditional like network news. You know, I'm a big fan of content creators and sort of what would you just call them? Like commentary. I love commentary, right? I love hearing people's perspective on stuff like that. What's your take on commentary channels and stuff like that? Like Isaac Butterfield, for one. You know, he's a comedian, but he loves to talk about all types of politics and stuff like that.
I think there's a huge space for it because you talk about how do you dumb it down? How do you relate to a piece of information which is complex? Well, you trust someone who you have a relationship with on your favorite content platforms, and they can explain it to you in a way that makes you understand it, but also entertains. I think there's a huge place for commentary and analysis in all manner of different places. I think the key, though, is how do you give those creators a platform? Is it TikTok? Is it Insta Stories? Is it YouTube? Is it enough to make a living in places like New Zealand? It's probably not. Is it enough to make a living in places like Australia? It's maybe. But if you're talking about $2 RPMs on YouTube and you get 1 million views a video, that's $2,000. It's not enough to make a big operation out of that sort of audience.
I mean, that's where BBC got Stephen Fry involved, wasn't it, on Question Time? Because he was quite renowned. He was quite he certainly had his ways, and he was quite contrarian in the way that he thought. But he was very educated, or he is very educated, and could talk in a way that people made sense of and dumb it down, but also ramp it up too. And if you liked him, of course you were going to watch him.
Who could be our Stephen Fry for Question Time?
Yeah, maybe you, buddy. Maybe you.
Oh, absolutely not. I thought you were talking about the bloke from don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Fry, the guy from the Simpsons spin-off that was in space. Don't worry about it. It's gone.
Futurama,
that's
very different, mate. Very different. So what's the genesis then of LeadStory? You've obviously done this. You love this. I get the sense you still love it. You want to continue. I mentioned obviously in the intro you're the co-founder of LeadStory. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so it was a business that was born out of what I wanted to watch. I wanted my news when I turned it on of a morning or of an evening to play me the highlights from the sports teams I followed, to tell me the crypto price, to tell me things in my world that I was interested in. And I was clicking around on YouTube, or I was scrolling through TikTok, and I was finding it. And there was a lot of steps, and great businesses are built out of reducing the number of steps for people to do things. And so I started thinking around the idea that the whole content industry had evolved and the news industry hadn't. And it was before Facebook and Google did the deals that they've done, which we're about to pull out of. With news networks, I was with 7 Network. They were making some cuts, and I went to see my boss and said, I've had an idea about building a personalized news bulletin. You could get people to tell you the things that they care about, and they tell you the things that they don't want to see, the places where they are, and you could essentially rearrange the news. So for me, the sport came first. There'd be a bit of politics, a bit of international, and I'd try and avoid all things crime, and that would be my news. And I'd watch it on, I'd watch it on my phone, I'd watch it on the TV. And my boss at 7 said, "That's a cracking idea. We have no one who could build that, and I don't know where to start." And I toyed with it for a while because I was in a great spot. I was doing lots of great stories with 7. I was on my way to probably taking up an overseas bureau posting, and I just had a young little boy, and so it was not a great time to start a business. But I had a pull that if I didn't do it, no one else was going to, and so I took a couple of months off. 7, took a sabbatical, went through a accelerator here in Sydney. Magically found a software engineer outside of that accelerator through a friend of a friend who is an unbelievable dev, but an even better bloke, a guy called Shane, who I've founded the business with, and we went and we built.
For people that don't know, what's an accelerator?
It's a bit like a mix between Shark Tank, The Apprentice, and Love Island, because there's a bunch of young people who are going out drinking together, but I certainly wasn't one of those. So I went through a program called Antler. So what they do is they bring 100 people into a room. They're split between 30 people with ideas, which was me, 30 odd people who are software engineers who can go and build the tech products, and then 30 what they call exceptional people. And they were, things like Harvard astrophysicists, former founders of large businesses. And so what you do is you work on sprints and you work on business ideas, you team up, and then at the end of it, they give 10 companies a check for 120 grand, and you go off and you build your business, and they own a slice of the business. We were offered funding and politely declined. We wanted to go out and raise on our own, which we did back in 2021. We got some great investors in, and we went and built. We went and pushed out a product. We made every mistake under the sun and tried every wrong street, and then an angel investor called Raynong, who I like a lot, said the best decisions in business are made with 6 weeks of runway. And we were pretty close to the edge, and heading to a point where we thought, when we just can't see how this can be a very big business. And then the idea from the very beginning was a personalized news bulletin on your smart TV, and so that's what we did. We went and approached Samsung and had a really good chat with them. Said, we've got all this great content, we think we could turn it into a channel, and so that's where the breaking news channel by LeadStory was born. We launched in the middle of last year. The biggest, and I can say it now because the business has come a long way. The biggest day before that, we did 7,500 people that visited the website and the app. That was our busiest day. The first day that the channel launched on Samsung TV Plus, which for those who don't know is a suite of channels that natively appears on your TV on Samsungs or LGs. We did 100,000 people on the first day.
Mega.
And so I remember
you got the round of applause button there.
I don't know which one it is. I don't want to do. I don't want to do the laughing one.
It up last time.
Just press them all. See which one it is. So that was middle of last year. We're since now live in a dozen markets. Last month we did just a touch over 3 million. More than 10 million views, 17 million minutes watched. It's a really nice phase for us because it's working, which is great because it's quite similar to the thing that I set out to do. That we're still saying what we think the audience should know. It's just in a bit more of a snackable, skippable 20-minute, not an hour way. But the really cool thing, and I'm probably not meant to talk about it too much because it's a bit of a secret project, but the thing that we get to do next month is launch a product which is our mission, which is the fully personalized bulletin on a channel. You go through a questionnaire and we ask you what do you like, what don't you like. Out of that section, you're interested in sport. Okay, what sports? And then in a channel environment, that channel is forever your personalized channel. So your channel will be different from John's, will be different from your neighbor's, and it'll watch what you watch, much like TikTok. We learn more from what you don't watch than what you do.
It's your For You page.
It's your For You page. And in a channel environment, look, channels haven't changed since 1927 when TV launched. They've always been linear. You turn it on when, 10 past the hour and you miss the first break of the news. This is different. This is proper cutting edge technology that no one's tried before, and we had an idea, we went for it, we built it, and it works. Touch wood.
That's fucking cool as. I can't wait to go home and plug and install the app.
It's not an app, it's a channel.
That's just a channel.
Yeah. So and originally when I came up with the idea, I thought it would have to be an app.
Yeah. Sounds easier being an app.
Well, so when we launched the channel, the linear channel on TV Plus, we noticed that My ads were different from Shane's ads, were different from our investors' ads. And so I remember speaking to Samsung and speaking to Amagi, which is our middle layer. It's a unicorn media tech company out of Bangalore. I said, how come we can personalize advertising, but we can't personalize the channel? And they kind of looked at each other and said, well, technically you could.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what's stopping you? And they said, well, there's a lot of steps. You need to identify the person from their TV ID. And Samsung was like, well, we've got that.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you'd need to personalize what people are interested in. I was like, we built that.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And so, yeah, I met the co-founder of Amagi at CES in Vegas, start of the year. I said, I've got a crazy idea. I probably need a fair bit of commitment from your team to build it, but I think if we can execute it on it, it changes everything that we know about TV. Not just for us, which, selfishly for a news channel that wants to personalize, it's great, but I think for the rest of consumers that are watching a series and instead of coming in episode 3 from season 6, they know that you finished episode 2 from season 2, and that's where you'll pick up. And that's the future of TV.
That's unbelievable. Like, I didn't know. That's you guys are the only ones doing that, yeah? Because, I've never heard of that. And it's funny, something that's used for something else, you've retooled to be able to use for what you want, which is unfucking believable. Well done, man.
Thanks, man.
That's a great... I just got nerded out then. That was good. I really enjoyed that.
So my poor co-founder's having kittens. Probably me talking about this because he said, when we launch it, don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what are you talking about? We're going to have to tell everyone. He said, no. If we have like 10,000 people hit the API at the same time, I don't know. I've built it for scale. And I was like, yeah, we'll be fine. He's like, if we have 100,000 people, I was like, it'll be fine. And so I'm under strict instructions not to say anything.
Well,
good one, mate.
Because we only get 9,500 people that watch this, so we're sweet.
Yeah.
One question I've always wanted to know, right? There's just going off that topic. Do you think there should be an obligation for media channels to educate or to inform people which way they swing?
As in political leaning?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. And so one of the things that we do, and I'm proud of, is we don't make our own news. So we have licensing deals with news networks. We've got a deal with Network 10 in here in Australia. We've got a deal with Fox News in the US. We've got a deal with CNBC. We have an Al Jazeera piece, very pro-Hamas, alongside an Israel 24 piece because we aggregate different publishers. So in that juxtaposition, there is two very differing sides of the view, but what it allows people to do is to educate themselves between both sides because the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it always is.
And should we say, Al Jazeera is a state-sponsored news network of the Qatari government? Yeah, we do. We definitely do. That's in the publisher portal. I think in the audience's eyes, though, they should also educate themselves. They should know that...
Totally, but most of them aren't.
True, yeah.
So I've got this app. I can't remember what the name of the app it is. But you look through news and then it will tell you which bias it leans towards. I think that should be, even if it's a little icon on the bottom of TV that says this is a right leaning, or just a percentage, or even just a hand that points which way it's going,
So I had an idea for...
It's a good visual. It's a good visual.
Yeah, look, we'll work out there,
Do you remember when Trump was running for president? There was a video that was similar to that where he would start on the speech and it was this hand that was like off topic, on topic, off topic. And it would just always be like off topic.
And mate, have you heard Biden talk? But sorry, what were you saying?
No. I said I had an idea for a trust meter. An open source trust meter. Do you trust this story? But that kind of got slapped down. But I think in a
open source.
So when you're watching the story, you can say, and it wouldn't be every story. It wouldn't be like you're watching something about a stock. But if it's a key important story, a yes or a no. Do you trust this? But there were just too many issues around. Well, do you trust the news network? Do you trust the politician who's speaking? Do you trust the reporter? It just got a bit complex. But I think in a world of misinformation and disinformation, having an element of, well, the majority of people who are watching this don't trust it, so I should probably take that into account. I think that's powerful.
So going back to your point around trends, so we've already talked about there's a big trend of people that just don't watch the news. What are you seeing with your LeadStory kind of analytics? You know, are people saying, I want to choose the sport first? Again, I guess to your little kind of sandwich analogy, do people go and say, well, I'm going to read the news, I'm going to start with sport because I like it, and then I might just dabble into like property because, I mean, that's always a good story, isn't it? And then I might go into politics. Like, are you seeing what people are looking at? And is there any trends around that?
Yep, certainly. I think the most interesting trend beyond topics is the amount of people that are actively searching out world news. And that was really one of my theories, was that, well, we don't really show it in Australian TV. We don't really show we show 30 seconds on some politics from the US and don't really do the 3-minute deep dive. Lots and lots of people come to us to watch international news because we've got the Reuters and we've got Al Jazeera and we've got CBC from Canada that does great stuff. And I think that's been a surprise for me, and that I think that's why the channel here has been quite successful, because if you want to consume that here, you've got to go to SBS. There's not really anywhere else to get that in-depth international coverage. The other trend, which is really pleasing to see, is traditionally television news audiences skew much, much older. So the percentage of 50 plus watching television news is vastly higher than 18 to 24s or 25 to 54s, which is the main audience that you want. Our audience skews younger. So our biggest audience sector is 25 to 34. And so
on the TV, or because it's on
the TV.
Yeah, wow.
And it's
I wouldn't have picked that.
Very simply because it's shorter. It's a 20-minute bulletin.
It's palatable.
Skippable. Yeah. They get what they need to get. It's super quick. They're informed, and they can go on with their day. And I think the personalized channel experience, which will go even more into that you can have you can get what you need to know in 5 minutes or 6 minutes, and we know that you can skip on TV, and so story comes up you don't want to watch or you already know about it. Next.
I think we are. That's really interesting insight, because I think that generation, and even our generation, in some part, we are the personalised generation. You know, we mentioned obviously around the streaming side, but even if you order things online, I don't know if you've done it recently, but let's say you order your takeaway pizza and you go back to that same website, let's say a week later, maybe, maybe not the next night, but the order's still in there. Like your latest order kind of defaults. And it's like, do you want to do this one again? So the whole thing is just designed to even more not make you think. Going shopping nowadays, tap the card while it's on your phone. So it's about making it quicker and easier and things. So we are that personalised generation.
Well, they talk about that delight when you go to an app and it knows you, or you turn on TikTok for the first time, having used it for 30 seconds, and it already serves you the things that you're interested in. And I think as a product, if you can really capture someone within that first interaction, within the first minute of them using it, your chances of keeping them are far greater. And that comes from, this is for me. This is that's what I'm interested in. That's what I didn't know that. That's the key. It's crucial.
So how do you go back to the business side then? Actually, with LeadStory, how are you monetizing it? So you said you got funding. So you've obviously got people on the TVs, Samsung. But if I can just watch it, I mean, how do you guys
ads?
I was hoping tonight was going to make me a bunch of money.
Absolutely. Well, as soon as we go out, but we can't go out for a few months.
Spotify money.
Absolutely. But is it that? Is it
It's 5 cents.
Is it subscription or advertising? What is it?
Yeah. So early on, we had a whiteboard session, and one of the things we said was we can't expect to make money the same way that news has made money for 100 years. We need to find different ways, and so we just came up with a few ideas, and obviously advertising is one of those. It's part of the channel that, out of that 20 minutes, you're served 2.5 minutes worth of advertising split up into 1:30 and a minute. And the beauty for that is it's a really complex game, advertising. And so what Samsung and others do is they will sell that advertising for us, and you'll get a check at the end of the month, which is great.
Yeah.
For an early stage business, showing revenue
Effortless,
and showing increasing revenue it's huge. Beyond that, though, we started having some discussions around, well, there's got to be other ways that we can make money out of those eyeballs, not just showing them ads for, you know, a product, but other ways. And so there's a couple of different verticals we make money from. None of them are subscription. So we saw too many examples of new subscription businesses, CNN Plus in the US, Flash here, that just did not work. They didn't get a big enough audience, because if you want to consume some news, you don't need to pay for it. You can go anywhere. You can go onto YouTube. You can go onto, you know, Twitter, and you can watch it. It's not something that people need to pay for. Yeah. So the two verticals which we have since built and have a lot of success with, the first is polling. So as people are watching a story, a bit different to YouTube, can we ask you a quick question before you watch this video? Where the most commonly responded answer is the one that's closest to skip this poll. We ask questions 20% of the way through the story that relate directly to the story that you're watching. And that's worked quite well. It's been a strong revenue driver for us. And the second, and it's a sales function, it's what's called native advertising. So it's a big part of the media at the moment, where you can essentially pay for a news story, and it's flagged as sponsored content, but in a very different way to a lot of the other native opportunities we see out there. Ours is designed to look and feel like a news package that would run on Channel 9 or Channel 7 or CNBC or Bloomberg. Well shot, network quality cameraman shooting it. We've done some great stories with great clients here, clients like Mosh, and it works. People love how it looks, and our audience, we've polled them, because we can, on how they feel about it, and they said it's interesting. We don't see those stories anywhere else. And it came from a place when I was at Channel 7, I would often have businesses come to me and say, we've got this great product launch, we've got this great story, and I would pitch it to the newsroom, pitch it to the chief of staff, and they'd say, yeah, that's super interesting, but this person's appearing in court, we need you to go and chase them. And so I always wanted, as part of our business, to be able to tell stories about great Aussie businesses or great Aussie individuals, and make them the star of the show. And it's been a really successful part. There's a sales cycle involved. There's a lot of networking, but we've got a lot of repeat customers and clients of ours who are recommending others in their networks to us, and that's been really successful. So, and then there's a third revenue, which I'm definitely not allowed to talk about, but it's the biggest. I think it's the biggest revenue opportunity in the content industry for the past 2 decades, and it's the rise of video in the car.
Sounds dangerous. I suppose when you got a Tesla where you got a 19-inch monitor right in front of you, I'm surprised it's not already done.
It's coming, and it's a super interesting space. Yes, there are safety measures, and so that's a big part of it. But Elon Musk was just in China convincing authorities there to allow fully autonomous driving. And so in the next, not even the next decade, the next 3 to 5 years, your car will drive you to work. What are you going to do? You're going to
that's true.
Turn on your phone, if you've got a giant monitor in the middle of your car, you'll watch content on there.
Yeah, we're very close to it. Autonomy level 5, and then you can just there's another opportunity to spill out content, visual content as well. Nice one.
See the gears.
I'm nerding out again. I'm just thinking how that looks as well. I'm like,
and I'm just thinking of connections.
Yeah.
Any more questions, mate?
No, man, I'm satisfied.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. If people
I bet.
Not today anyway. If people want to learn more about LeadStory, they want to get involved, I guess if they're curious about working with you guys, how is best to get in contact?
Sure. Visit us at leadstory.com, or you can see us on Samsung TV Plus, channel 1024, LG channels, which is new, IP 203, or just hit me up on LinkedIn. Love to hear from you.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on and sharing your stories and your story in your space. Fascinating, and well done on the business. It sounds super exciting.
Thanks, gents.
Yeah, nice.
Appreciate it.